right, welcome to another episode of our podcast here. Today we have Dr. John Grunwell here. He is an alumnus from the class of 1960, and he spent his entire life in the sciences, from helping his mother in the lab and studying chemistry with Earl Wilkins here at CFS, to teaching chemistry at Miami University of Ohio, publishing over 40 papers, and developing the PhD program at Miami as well. His passion is all things STEM, and since his retirement, he has been paying that passion forward by being a strong supporter of many of Church Farm School's critical fundraising campaigns, and even establishing the Wilkins Scholarship Fund. Welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I want to apologize for the shortness of the bio. Again, the one that I asked for that was provided was 3 pages, and I had to whittle that down to 1.5 pages.
That's okay.
And then down to a paragraph.
I'd fall asleep if you read 3 pages.
It's an impressive list of accomplishments, and hopefully we'll get to a few of those. I don't want to keep you too long today, so I'm just going to kind of touch base on things, and I usually provide a couple of questions ahead of time. And the one that I was really curious about is this first one: can you tell us what life was like back at CFS before the days of cars?
I wasn't here before the days of cars, but I'll tell you what it was like when I was here. All right. First of all, every waking minute was accounted for, so there was virtually no free time. We were either working or going to school. And of course, I think most importantly, we worked 6 weeks in the summer from the 7th grade up.
Really?
Yeah. So 7th and 8th grades were in the second 6 weeks, mostly getting in grain. And in the first 6 weeks, the upper school worked. And there's a lot of work that goes on in June and early July. All the winter grain has to come in, and of course, hay. Lots and lots of hay. And then of course there are a group of boys in the upper school who are responsible for milking the cows.
Right.
And they did that year round. So of course, we didn't go home for Thanksgiving. We didn't go home for Easter. The only holiday we ever went home for was Christmas.
Really?
Yes, we got about 10 days at Christmas, and we got a week of spring break, usually early in March. We had basically the same 5 faculty members all through high school teaching their subject. So Mr. Wilkins was science, and Mr. Bayshore was mathematics. Spanish was Mr. Snavely, and history was Mr. Hoyer. English classes were taught by 3 different people because they didn't seem to figure out how to hold on to the English teacher, because they had fired Jim Harper at the end of our middle school.
Okay.
Supposedly he smoked and let the kids smoke on the bus coming back from basketball games, which, as you might imagine, was a big no-no.
Right.
If you smoked and got caught, you were done.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like if you cross the highway without using the tunnel, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the same idea. And of course that was because they were scared to death somebody was going to burn a barn down.
Well, especially when you're dealing with all that hay.
Yes, correct. Especially if you bring it in too green, it gets a little warm. So, so I did a lot of different jobs too. I mean, I wasn't just, typically I got to mop the new gym, set up the dining hall after lunch for supper, and sweep out the dining hall. And sometimes there was a silo up near the highway, and the silage in that silo went down the road to Shirley Barn. So that my classmate, Ron Milburn, he drove the tractor, and I'd dump a bunch of silage down into a spreader, and he would take it down to the heifers at Shirley. That just gives you some idea of the kinds of things we were doing. I also used to fold letters for the Christmas fund.
Okay.
And I helped take care of the roses. And Roland Kirk and I would go out there, and he would be running the sprayer, and I was pushing the sprayer behind him. Of course, there was no OSHA or NIOSH in those days, so of course we didn't have masks on. So Lord only knows what it was we were ingesting.
Oh, yes. Oh no.
The diet was deadly.
Really?
Because we ate the same things on the same days, year after year after year.
Oh no.
Okay, like we always had chili on Tuesday night. We always had cream of wheat Tuesday morning. We always had oatmeal on Sunday. We always had pancakes on Saturday morning. We always had French toast on Wednesday morning. And you're wondering, after all this time, how do I remember that? Well, if you eat the same thing
every day for years, on the same day,
you're going to remember for the rest of your life what you ate.
Right.
Now, some of it, I came to like Scrapple, which is an acquired taste, as we all know.
Yes.
But we always got scrapple and sausage on Thursday at noon. You have to remember that the noon meals were the big meals, because not only were they feeding us, who were farm workers, but the men who worked on the farm also ate in a separate dining room, and it was their big meal for the day, so that they would be able to work, because they needed the calories. So.
Right.
Well, that's the way it was. And sometimes the meals at supper time were a little on the slim side.
Really?
Yeah. It could be chicken broth, cold cuts and cheese and bread.
Really?
Yeah. And there was always either peanut butter or apple butter on the table. And the bread was always not white bread.
Okay.
Okay. And we all had our glass of raw milk. 3 meals a day.
Right.
Okay. And there was always a pitcher of water. I can't tell you what the water looks like after you drink Golden Guernsey cow milk. Okay. So I hope that answers your question, gives you a little sense of what was going on.
Well, what I think is interesting that I think, we see some pictures of here, but particularly our students don't get, is the work ethic, the amount of work that was put in outside of the classroom, of the academic side, what the expectation was back in the day,
Okay, well, we were boys doing men's work. And I suppose we learned resilience, and we learned to stick to it, and we knew we had to slog through and get the job done. And I suppose we learned things like that from it, but the time that was invested in that was just over the top. So that it was tough to sustain yourself academically. Now, fortunately for me, I like to read. And so what I learned to do was to do my job efficiently and then go find some corner to hide in, because I always had a book stuck in my back pocket. So that's how I sort of survived it. And a lot of the books that the Colonel must have read were in this library down here. So I was able to go in that library and just take whatever I wanted. There was no librarian. You just helped yourself. And there wasn't any point in stealing books. Well, who was I going to sell them to?
Right.
So you just, when you're done reading them, you put them back. And, I read a bunch of books by a fellow by the name of Winston Churchill, but not the Winston Churchill you're thinking of. This is the American author who wrote Civil War romances.
Okay. Yeah, my mind did not go there.
No, I'm sure it did. So, I actually did steal a book out of that library.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was Linus Pauling's book on chemical bonding, which led him to win the Nobel Prize.
Okay.
Because I thought I needed the book more than anybody else here did.
Got it. All right. We'll continue to record there. Okay. Well, the thing I wanted to make is, to your point, is how much effort you had to put in outside of the classroom made the classroom very difficult.
Right.
And our students here today often, grumble about the amount of what they have to do outside of the classroom with athletics and some other.
They're lucky little boys.
They really don't know what kind of energy had to be expended before.
Maybe a typical day will help you.
All right.
6:30 up. I always had my tie tied. Always wore tie. And breakfast was at 7. You got there, you ate, you were done in 20 minutes. Back to the cottage, tidy up your room, clean up whatever needed to be cleaned up. And on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, assembly hall at 8 o'clock. And by 8:15, we were in class. This is the high school now. We were in class, and all morning. And whatever classes we had to take. I don't remember how long the periods were at this point, but then after that, we had lunch at 12:10. We all lined up either in the hallway, the lower hallway, or outside when the weather was okay. We lined up by class, and the senior prefects were responsible for keeping order, along with the master of the day.
Okay.
I can actually tell you who the master of the day was on each day, okay?
All right.
So when I was first here, Mr. Harper was the Monday. Tuesday was Mr. Wilkins. Wednesday was Mr. Bayshore. Thursday was Mr. Hoyer. And Friday was Mr. Stable. And on the weekends, they rotated it. So one master would get both days on the weekend, and then they rotated that. Okay, so after lunch, or we called it dinner, we went to our work assignments. There were 2 milk squads. So one milk squad went to bed in the afternoon, the other milk squad went down to do the afternoon milking. And they had already done the morning milking, so that when their turn came around, they would be in the afternoon sleeping every other day. That's how they worked it. Now, I was never on the milk squad, so I don't know what they endured. Okay. After we were done with that, now, as I said, in the wintertime, my job was, after I mopped the gym and took care of the dining hall, then the junior school came in, and so Mr. Carruthers and I taught them how to play basketball.
Okay.
And then at 4 o'clock, when their supervised play was over, then basketball practice started.
Right.
And that lasted till about 5:30, 6 o'clock. Take a shower, and then dinner was at 6:30, and study hall was at 7. And study hall lasted till about 8:30, sometimes 9 o'clock. And depending on what grade you were in, when bedtime was, seniors got to go to bed at 9:30. Of course, I always had a book and a flashlight. So I pop under the covers and read books. I remember reading a Herman Wouk novel in bed at night. That was The Caine Mutiny, which Humphrey Bogart starred in the movie famously with his brass. Never mind. Okay, so that's kind of what a day was like for me. We always slept well.
I'm sure. You put that energy in, you're going to be tired.
Saturday morning, the cottages needed to be cleaned. There was usually an older boy from the high school with one of the junior kids. The kids in middle school were in school Saturday morning because they went to school in the afternoon. What were they doing in the morning? They were cleaning the cow barns.
Fun job. My goodness.
Okay, so that sort of gives you a thumbnail sketch. I mean, I've tried to catch the rhythm and the way in which our time was always accounted for. The only free time we had was Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. Our parents got to come here once a month.
Really?
Yeah, once a month.
Wow.
That's it. And they got to come, they could come to, remember we were all down at St. Paul's for church. Okay?
Yeah.
Now I spent 8 years in the choir, and that choir was there. The last 2 years I was a crucifer. So.
Well, I mean, something's changed and something's stayed. It's the same. The idea of the regular kind of schedule and most of the time being accounted for. The students are still in that kind of situation. Their days are fairly regimented. Even today, just with different tasks that they have to do. But
yes, but I noticed the little boys were down there playing instruments. 20 minutes before we'd all be down in the sacristy getting our vestments on, getting ready to lead the procession into church. So,
Well, the second question here kind of follows up on that, is that you were a Headmaster's Watch Award winner.
Yep.
And for those who don't know, the Headmaster's Watch is a unique token of the school's gratitude and admiration for that student whose particular character, ability, maturity, moral authority, spiritual balance, leadership, and overall contributions to the school have made an enduring and lasting impact on the entire community. That's quite the description. So that's what it is. Can you tell me a little bit about winning that award?
That's embarrassing.
I don't think so. I mean, clearly you're outstanding.
Okay. I was here almost 8 years, Mike Wallington and I especially. And so my classmates came and went, and I was a smart aleck in a lot of ways, okay? I had to learn to curb my tongue, and which sometimes I managed to do, but sometimes not, which got me in a lot of trouble, I might tell you. I guess the only thing I can say is 2 of my classmates got into trouble. They broke into the barn, hot-wired a truck, and went on a trip.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you who they were. And they got caught ripping off hubcaps from cars.
Whoa, okay.
In Maryland.
Really?
And Mr. Charles had to go to Maryland to get them out of jail. When they came back, unbeknownst to them, the founder convened a assembly of students.
Yikes.
And he asked us what we should do, what the school should do with them. And several of my colleagues got up and worried about the school's reputation and so forth and so on. But I happen to know that these 2 weren't the only ones who did that. So after they had run their mouths, I got up and I said, everybody deserves a second chance. And these guys deserve a second chance.
Okay.
And the old man gave them a second chance.
Wow.
So, I'm not sitting here making myself look like goody two-shoes. These 2 guys were on my basketball team, and they were tall, and I needed them on my basketball
Your ulterior motive.
So, I had an ulterior motive for getting up and running my mouth. But on the other hand, I really did believe they needed a second chance. Everybody deserves a second chance, okay? later on, one of those classmates and I were talking many, many years later, and he said, "Oh, what you guys didn't know was I came here in the middle school, and at night I would open my window and jump out the window and go gallivanting around the campus after we were all supposed to be asleep."
What? What?
I about fell on the floor. I couldn't believe it. So his habit of wanderlust.
Wow. Whew. Well, yeah. Wow. I got nothing to say about that one. Well, I'm glad that you were able to get them to have a second chance, and hopefully they took
Me
advantage
too,
of it.
because senior year was wonderful. Now, we only went 7-7, but we beat teams that you wouldn't have expected us to beat, like we beat the George School.
Wow. Okay.
And they were not happy. We should have beaten Tower Hill, but that's another story. We only lost by 1 point in their gym.
All right.
We really beat them by 1 point, but crooked referee. All right. So,
well,
what was I experiencing when the watch came my way? I had a hunch, and I won't tell you why, but I had a hunch it was coming my way. And but he got up and let me know that the watch was really for my mother, because my mother had been very supportive of the school whenever I got into trouble. She let me know, you've screwed up.
Right.
So when that watch was presented to me, of course I accepted it, and I was grateful for it. I mean, who wouldn't be pleased to be honored in such a way? So,
right.
I don't remember the colonel reading that statement, however.
I just read the copy provided to me.
Yes,
so.
I understand. The other thing I would say about the watch is that mine used to have, a pocket watch is passe, okay? And so mine hung in a little cheese thing. And,
Okay.
Yeah, and you could open it up and it says excellence, and my name is there, my graduation thing was there. And our family went to a swim meet in Michigan. When I came back, the house was robbed, and that was one of the things that got taken.
No.
So I don't have that.
What? I was not told about that ahead of time. You gotta be kidding me.
Well, the watch has been replaced. Ned and Lori, I think.
Really?
Lori may have put Ned up to it.
Okay.
So I have a replica of it. I mean, it's not a gold Hamilton pocket watch, okay? And I understand that tradition stopped when the founder passed, because some of the kids, some of the watch guys said, "Oh, well, all we got was a Hamilton wristwatch." But when I first came here, the Hamilton wristwatch was given to the boy who had the highest academic numerical average.
Really?
Yeah, so I got mine in 5th grade.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I had the best average for the entire school. Now, you can imagine that didn't go over too well with the kids who were sweating it out in high school. So, anyway.
Well, I just
And then, of course, Duke Disney. So I'm awash in watches and clocks, for which I'm very grateful. Okay, if the recognition that goes along with that, you can't replace. So.
Absolutely. Just wanted to move on to this question here, because I've heard your name a lot, because I teach in the STEM department, and I know that I've been here 25 years, and your name has been around all that time. And I just wanted to talk about, you've consistently stayed involved within the school, and what makes you keep wanting to come back and give back, in particular to this STEM.
Because I remember the 8 years I put in here.
Right.
Okay. So I know where a lot of these kids are coming from. My mother was poor. my mother and I were poor. We had to move out of my grandmother's house because he had contracted TB. And so we left beautiful Glenside, Pennsylvania for the wilds of the greater Northeast in Philadelphia. I lived in a third floor apartment above Cutler's paint store on the corner of Leon and Cotman Avenue.
Really?
Yeah, I walked home from school. Mayfair School was a new elementary school at the time, and I got there sometime in the third grade, I think, and I was there until I came here.
Okay.
And my mother was working, so I came home. I was kind of a latchkey kid, you know. There was a branch lab on the second floor, and I was supposed to, I would check in with the technician who was there, and then she would take me to Jenkintown where my mother was working. And then we'd come back up Cotman Avenue, Township Line Road and Cotman Avenue, if you're familiar. And there was a little place called George's Grill, and frequently my mother was too tired to cook, and so we ate at George's Grill. Can't tell you how many Salisbury steaks I ate.
Salisbury steaks.
So I know no matter what the circumstances of the kids are here, their home circumstances were probably similar to mine.
Okay.
They had a mother who was working, who needed to find a place where their kid was safe when she wasn't around. And so this school fills that unique niche. And I think it's important that those of us who've managed to succeed try to find some way to help the school get forward. So not everybody feels the same way, obviously, but the other thing, of course, is my darling wife, after she stopped being a chemist, became interested in the financial services industry. And she essentially became an enrolled agent. And without talking too much about what that means, she could sell real estate, she could sell insurance, life insurance, she could do your taxes.
Okay.
In fact, she passed Sigma 8, which is the government's highest tax test, and when she felt their answers were incorrect, she let them know.
Wow. Okay.
She was a gifted mathematician, and so she managed our 403B. So you know that public employees can stash money away as they're going from year to year to year to year in a 403B. That's what it's called. It's a retirement fund. Of course, working 41 years in the state teacher retirement system, I essentially retired on the highest three averages of money. I get a lot of money from the state of Ohio every year, which I can live on. So once you pass 70, you have to take a required minimum distribution from your 403B accounts. That's extra money. And after she passed away, I started giving it back here. I was looking around. I needed to lower my tax rate, for one thing. And I was looking around for, well, who could use this money better than anybody else? You know, I went to Penn and MIT. They don't need my money.
Right.
And yes, I know the school had a big endowment, but I remember how much money my mother paid for me to go here. It was $600 a year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
In those days, each class had a benefactor. Our benefactor was Malin Klein, Smith Klein in French.
Okay.
And on the way out the door, we were required to write a thank you letter to Malin, which we did. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, I don't think the school does that anymore, especially now that the endowment is what it is. But my stepfather actually when he saw what was going on here at the school, he said, well, the land's their investment, and when they get around to selling it, that's going to be their endowment, and it's going to be perfect for them. So, when I had kids and so forth, and I was in college, I sure didn't have the money to give back to the school. But there was one little thing I did do, and that was, I knew the value of writing was important no matter what area of study you would choose. So I set up the creative writing prize in Jim Harper's name because Jim Harper taught me how to write.
Okay.
Jim Harper was a 1945 graduate of this place, and he was an English teacher. After he parted from the school, he worked at Norristown High School. But he continued to interact with us in the choir. So he had a beautiful tenor voice.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I just wanted to let you know, I know that the school appreciates everything that you've done for us. I know that I've appreciated it because I've been a direct recipient of some of your kindness here in the STEM department. So, they thank you, I thank you, and I hope we can keep the STEM department and the initiatives moving forward and get these guys.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons for this is the diversity of the school should be reflected in the sciences, and so why not support the sciences at the school? After all, the sciences under Earl Wilkins were important for my development, and it's the part of my education that allowed me to survive the first couple of years at the University of Pennsylvania, along with meeting my classmate who became my wife after we graduated. So
excellent.
Yeah, so that's advice for current and future.
Yeah, we've had you here a long time now. So this, briefly, we usually wrap these things up by asking any kind of advice you have for the current or future students here at CFS.
Well, my advice to any college student is to get involved in some prof's intellectual enterprise apart from the classroom stuff they're doing. If all you do is go to class, you're really missing out. Okay, it's value added if you get in a lab somewhere as early as you can,
right? Or
you work for some prof in the humanities, even if it's just scut work, doing library work, research work. That's important because you're learning what it means to be a scholar in that area. And of course, the other thing I encourage them all, that their bachelor's degree is their first degree, and that they should continue their education wherever they can. So that's my advice to the students.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in today and taking the time to speak with me and get this podcast rolling. I know a lot of people were very eager to get this one on tape, so we're going to send it out, and everyone in the world can listen to it at some point in the near future. Okay?
Oh, well, okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.